In the last video, we spoke about the flow that a user is going to go through whenever they initiate OAuth inside of our application. So now in this video, we're going to start going through the actual setup process. All right, so here's the general idea of what we're going to do. If you've already gone through that previous application, building that YouTube application, a couple of these steps might feel a little bit familiar. So the first thing we're going to go to is the developers console at google.com. We're going to create a new project. Once we create this new project, we're going to first set up an OAuth confirmation screen. That confirmation screen is essentially the same one that you go through anytime that a user starts that OAuth flow, and we ask the user for access to their email or profile or whatever else. After that, we're then going to generate a OAuth client ID. This is going to be an identifying token that is going to identify our application to Google servers. Following that, we'll then install Google's API library and initialize it with that OAuth client ID, and then we'll make sure that anytime that the user clicks on that Login with Google button, we make use of that Google API library to start the OAuth process. So let's get to it. We're going to first begin by setting up a new project at console.developers.google.com. So inside of a new browser tab, I'll go to, console? I always mix up the order there. I always do developers.console. All right, console.developers.google.com. Now, once you come here, remember you might see a project already on the screen if you have ever created a project with Google before. You probably do not want to reuse a project that you've already created. Instead, we want to create a new project. So we're going to find the project dropdown up here at the top left-hand side and then click on it. Once we have this dropdown open or this pop-up open, I'll then click on New Project up here at the top right. We then get asked to enter in a project name, and so I'm going to use a project name of simply Streamy. And then I'll click on Create. Now remember, when you generate a project with Google, you're going to see a little notification spinner up here. Even though you think that you just created the project, it is still in the process of being created. And so when you get dumped back at this page, you are still probably going to be looking at a previously generated project. So it's only after that notification spinner ends, and I see that little one right there, that my project has been created, and I can now successfully select it. So I'm going to go back up to this dropdown on the top left-hand side and select Streamy. So now I have the correct project selected. All right, so now that we've generated our project, we now need to set up an OAuth confirmation screen. So to do so, I'm going to find the credentials button on the left-hand side. I'm going to go to OAuth consent screen, and we're going to generate a new screen right here. Now, all we have to do is really enter in our application name. So I'm going to enter in an application name of Streamy like so. Then I can go down to the bottom and click on Save. After that, I'm going to go back to the credentials section. I'll select the credentials submenu, and then I'll see this big notice right here in the middle that says that we need to create a set of credentials. So I'm going to click on that button right there, and we're going to make sure that we select OAuth Client ID. We're not making an API key here, we're making a OAuth Client ID. So I'm going to select that. We then get asked what type of application we are making. We're making a web app. We'll then see this little form appear. Now the only thing we have to add in here is a authorized JavaScript origin. This little check right here, or whatever URL right here, is essentially a little security check. Google is only going to allow OAuth requests to come in from a domain that is equal to whatever we list right here. So at present, we are making use of our React application at localhost 3000. So I'm going to put in http://localhost:3000 like so. Now notice that I did not put in HTTPS. It is simply HTTP. And then I'll click on Create at the bottom. I then see this pop up right here for my OAuth client, and it has my client ID. So the only thing that we care about is the client ID. We are not going to be making use of our client secret. We would only make use of that client secret if we were creating a flow with the OAuth for servers flow. But we are doing OAuth for JS browser applications, and for that type of flow, we only need the client ID right here. So I'm going to copy this ID, and then I'm going to go back over to my code editor. I'm going to create a new file. I'm not going to create it inside my project directory. I'm just going to essentially go to File, New File, and inside of here I'll say Client ID, and I'll just paste that in like so. Now again, I'm not going to save this file because we're going to make use of this key in just a moment. I just want to make sure that you don't lose it and have to go back over to the dashboard and get access to it a second time. Okay, so that's it. We've now got our client ID. So let's take a quick pause right here. We can close that window. When we come back to the next video, we're going to start to install the Google API library and then initialize it with that client ID and then set up that click event handler. So quick pause and I'll see you in just a minute.